What's up, guys? And hey, Jack. I'm just checking up on YouTube stuff. I just got home from work and I'm checking up on email and YouTube stuff and whatever before I get to bed. And I saw your video on the mess with BP and how we all are compliant in this because not only, they were tapping in there and they were guilty of drilling deeply just to get profits, but they wouldn't have been doing it in the first place if people didn't have such an insatiable need for the energy in the first place. I want to add to that as well, because there's something else I think that also shows that little insidious nature of ours and the double standards that we happen to employ when it comes to this sort of thing. It's funny to me how, in this country it's almost like a game to ridicule anybody who cares about the environment and who points out that certain things that we're doing to it are detrimental, at the very least, to our own well-being. And they say we're over-exaggerating and it's BS and global warming's a hoax and all this other type of stuff. And they continue to hold true to it until it affects them. There's one thing that has really been cracking me up, because I'm into, it's either you laugh or you cry. There's one thing that's really been cracking me up about this outcry against BP ever since this has began. The outrage and the displeasure that has been coming out all over this is focused on one thing. I mean, they're focusing on other things, but the major focus of this rage is that it's affecting other people's livelihoods. True, you will hear lip service paid to the wildlife that's dying and talking about how, the pretty birds are dying, the sea life, it's so horrible. But it usually is in terms of the people's satisfaction. People are pissed off that the birds are dying because they won't see them anymore, not necessarily for the sake of the animals themselves. People are pissed off that the sea life is dying, not so much for the sake of the lives of the animals themselves, but just because they can't fish there anymore because the sea life is tainted, or they're just all gone. So their business is affected. In other words, the only thing that's pissing these people off is self-interest. And that's pretty much the only thing that really motivates a lot of Americans, unfortunately. It's always self-interest. It's the same pattern. It's nothing new, really, and it shouldn't be surprising. Look at, for instance, the rage against the bailouts that went on in this country. Bailouts for big companies when they were beginning to fail is nothing new. We've been seeing companies like GM be bailed out over and over again since the late 80s on. But no one said anything because it was cool to bail out companies. If you said that, if you were going to speak out against that stuff, then you were anti-American. After 9/11 had happened, airline companies were suffering. They got a bailout. No one said shit. The only reason why people went nuts was because with this current round of bailouts, it was during the middle of it was just the beginning of the economic crisis, and people were terrified that they were going to lose their homes and lose their funds and their money. And then suddenly now you got bailouts, and now they're going to have a huge tax bill on them, and they were freaking out about that. I ain't got no money to spend. Now Americans got pissed. Self-interest. The only reason why they were pissed off about bailouts this time was because they felt that they were going to get affected. But if you take them out of the equation, or if you get them to believe that they're not in the equation, they don't care. And it's the same thing with this. The only reason why people are going crazy about the BP spill is because it affects them. If this happened somewhere else, they wouldn't care. I can prove it with something else. The fact that there are tons of people pissed off right now that Obama is deciding that he's going to put a freeze on offshore drilling, particularly in deep waters, until he can guarantee that it's going to be safe. How he's going to be able to do that, I don't know, but there it is. And what are we hearing? You can't do that. What about my job? There's so much to laugh at here. If people People are thinking that this is just some isolated incident and that BP is the only oil company that has been hoodwinking the American public by putting fake papers through and getting regulators to sign off on this shit. They got another thing coming. I mean, come on. This is nothing new. This is what these companies do. It's been shown over and over again throughout history that these companies will constantly do whatever it takes to get their agenda going through. If you don't believe me, hell, NPR just, like I think it was yesterday, was reporting on how there's a documentary that's going to be on HBO soon about how gas companies have been trying to force people to lease their land out to them so that they can drill, and all the drilling that they're doing is poisoning everyone around them. Yet, these same gas companies right now are putting out commercials on TV talking about, hey, you need us because we're going to give you jobs. And I bet you there's tons of people backing them up. Yeah, they're going to give us jobs. So they're willing to poison themselves. They won't complain about it until they're poisoned, of course, because if the gas companies come in and tell them, hey, trust me, this is not going to affect you. All that stuff about being poisoned, that's bullshit. It's bullshit. We've double-checked it. We've triple-checked it. You guys will be safe. Don't worry about it. Your drinking water won't be affected. The land will be fine. And we'll give you guys millions if you give us your land. What? Millions of dollars? Sold! Years later, they got nervous conditions, and now they want to sue, but the evidence was already out there. But when those people were telling them that, you're just fucking crackpots. You're trying to keep me from being rich. You're trying to keep me from getting jobs. Self-interest is the main motivation in this country. That's the only way you get people to react in any way. They will not react for the sake of whatever it is that's being damaged. It's only if it affects them. That's always been the way it's been around here. If you ever want to notice any type of pattern, that's it. That's how you hoodwink them. That's how you trick them. And it's hilarious to see how many times people keep falling for this shit over and over again. It's funny. I mean, right now we have a perfect example of why you can't let these companies run wild and why you can't let them do whatever the hell they want. But Americans are still willing to go to war to let this happen because they think that their jobs are going to be affected, which is surprising in a country that supposedly cares about free enterprise and making one's own path in life. We are so used to selling ourselves to companies in order to make a living that we can't see any other way possible to live. So that when someone says, hey, this is going to mess up your chance of selling yourself to somebody, we go mad. Hey, I want to sell myself to them. This is the only way I can live. And yes, I'm putting it in those terms precisely because that is what you're doing when you go out and get a job. You are selling yourself to someone. You sign a contract and then give up 8 hours of your life per day to labor for somebody else so that they can benefit off of your work. That is what we have been doing. This is, by the way, something that Americans were some Americans anyway, were trying to fight against during around the 1850s or so. They saw that this was going to happen because back then there was more of a chance for you to work for yourself. You had your own land, you probably had your own farm, you apprenticed yourself out to someone, earned a trade, then went out and started your own business to support yourself. We don't do that anymore. Now we do it for other people. And rich motherfuckers and corporations love it that way. They will work off your ideas. How many times you see people, you find out companies that got patents on new inventions, but the company didn't invent it. The person inside the company did. He'll get no benefit. Maybe he might get a bonus or a raise, but he will not really get full credit for that thing that was invented. The company owns the patent now. And this is what we're used to. And we think that this is the only way to live. And then when somebody says that, somebody comes around and does something that might threaten that way of living, the way we prostitute ourselves to other people, we go crazy. We can't allow that. No. Allow me to prostitute myself for this. And then, when in our actions of prostituting ourselves for these companies, the company ends up effing us over, then we want to complain. But we were willing to be taken advantage of in the beginning because we thought we were going to get some gain out of it. Self-interest. Once again, it's only about self-interest that we do these things. We will do some amazing things. And I'm not saying amazing in a good way. We'll do some outrageous shit just for self-interest. Just because we think we're going to get something out of it. That's why you can put out that video talking about how what's happening in BP is pretty much our fault because we want that energy. We think we're getting some benefit out of all the drilling that's going around. Then when shit happens, oh my God, it's so horrible. But there were people already trying to tell you this is probably not a good idea. We might want to look at other alternatives. Yeah, but it's going to be too painful to look for other alternatives. I mean, that means I might not get something for a while. I might be temporarily inconvenienced. We can't have that. And that's the American way. on, laugh, it's funny. I know, it's not all that funny, but if you're into dark humor like this, or if you understand just how effed up human beings are, you can't help but laugh. At least if you're as screwed up as I am, but that's my problem. Yeah, seriously, with this whole BP mess that's happening, that's the main thing that's been in my mind. The hypocrisy of it all. The hypocrisy of pointing out how effed up this company is, but we got tons of other companies doing the same thing, but we're willing to kowtow to them because they haven't been caught yet. Talk about self-examination. Anyway, that's all I wanted to add. Catch you later.